everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face, is that right?
Correct.
So you hear that so much where people say, yeah, you know, you watch videos on YouTube and people say, yeah, you get punched in the face, you never do any of that, right? And it's very true. I've got to agree. The more you have in your brain, the less likely it is going to work in a real fight. Keep watching, because what I'm going to do is explain exactly what you should be doing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, click the bell notifications, even though I haven't hit Nick, but if you subscribe you get to see me hitting the Nick, bang, 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 which is always worth subscribing for, because we have fun hitting Nick. So let's get on with the video. So the point is that if you go into a fight with a plan, it's less likely to work for you in the real world. You should never, ever, ever go into a situation where you're going to assume the person's going to do X, Y, Z. I did that once, I'll never do it again, because you will not get it right. It just doesn't work like that. In fact, most people have this preconception that the variables will always be the same. The variables can change. If Nick thinks I'm unarmed and then he wants to get in my face and start having a go at me and I suddenly pull my weapon, okay, the variables have now changed. I can get my shot off, he's in problems straight away because he had a plan, and his plan was to get in my face and start having a go, but he didn't take into account that actually things can change. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it, if you get hit or you get struck, you physically react differently. So if, for example, I get hit, bang, and he hits me again, bang, and he catches me again, and I try to draw my weapon, you'll probably may find, unless you've trained the instincts of operant conditioning, where you're training, you're getting your reactions, you're getting your shots off, you'll probably find your brain will go into panic mode. It's the same with surprise attacks. If you get someone who's suddenly driving at you and suddenly throwing punches and coming at you, bang, and they're catching you by surprise, you will probably find that if the plan that you had in effect will not work. Plans do not survive first contact. That's a common saying. So the one thing you need to be able to do is have a flexible way of thinking. Now, what we do know from psychology is that when you have a flexible way of thinking, you're much more resilient to changes in action. So the resilience comes from knowing for a fact that, or accepting for a fact that you might get hit in a real fight. And therefore, if you get hit in a real fight, and this is what I tell all my guys when I'm training them all the time, that if I get hit in a real fight, and this is the point, I don't get freaked out about it. What I do is I accept it. I know it's part of the process. I can't be in a fight and not get hit. It's like making eggs, right? You can't scramble eggs without opening the egg. Anyone who thinks they're going to get into a fight and never ever get hit, they're in the fantasy world. Because even if you come out dominant, you come out on top, your clothes are going to be ripped, your face is going to be punched in, you're going to be bruised. It's very rare that you're going to hit someone and they're going to fall on the floor. Most people will experience adrenaline, they'll take your punches and they'll hit you back. So fights are brutal. If you accept that from a mindset perspective straight away, then what you've got is a situation where you're going to be more resilient to changes. So your plan of action should be a strategy. And this is what I always say, have a strategy to fight, not a plan. If I have a strategy, the strategy is flexible. I can adapt the strategy according to the types of people, according to the variables I've got. So if we were talking about weapons, as we were talking about earlier, just put it away in your band. Okay, you've got your knife anyway, haven't you? Yeah. If we've got strategies, then it becomes much more flexible than plans. You know, when I first started teaching martial arts, I used to tell people, used to say, what do you do for a living? And I used to say to them, I teach martial arts. And then straight away they would say to me, well, what would you do if I grabbed you like this? What would you do if I grabbed you like this? What would you do if I hit you like this? Has that ever happened to you? Yeah. It's the worst thing ever if you meet someone who does a martial art and that people always assume that you've got the answer. Now here's the thing, my response was always, I don't know, try it, let's find out. But it wasn't because I was threatening them, it's because at the end of the day, I don't have a plan of action. What I have is a plan of reaction. I will react naturally according to the attack or the threat that comes on board. That does come from training, but it has to be guided by a strategy. So my training is based on a strategy. The strategies are position, control of space, efficiency of movement, Those are all of what we're trying to look at. So position would be, I'd always try to adopt a position, and whether that's distance or location, distance would be, if you move back for me, okay, I'd either be further away from the person to control the distance, or I would be in close to control the distance, but never in the middle. Because as I said, if he's got a weapon and he draws the weapon and he's at a distance, then I'm dead. He's shot me. At least if he's close and he's drawing his weapon, I'm not even giving him a chance. I'm not going to give him a chance. I'm going to be on this straight away. I'm going to be on him straight away. I'm going to be fighting for that weapon, because any sort of distance that he has with that weapon is going to put me at risk. That's one strategy, not a plan. It's not memorizing techniques. If you try to memorize techniques, you will never remember them when the adrenaline's on, the action's on, the fight's on, and the variables change from weapons to hands to anything, to cars to multiple assailants. You cannot prepare or plan for it all. What you can do is strategize. So if I've got my distance, I can strategize for that distance. If I've got my position, I can understand simple concepts that if I stand towards a weaponized arm, I put the weapon away because there's no way I can move in. If he's already got the weapon out and I move in on him, for example a knife, if he's already got that, I'll give you my one. If I walk into the knife, bang, it's a done deal. So, dealing with weapons, the only time you can deal with a weapon, realistically, and forget what everybody else tells you, is when he draws the weapon. If he already has the weapon out, then you're as good as dead. And anybody tells you you've got this, that, and you can do this disarm and you do that disarm, well, they shouldn't. Okay, it's a dangerous thing to try to disarm someone with a weapon pointed at you. Okay, unless you have a weapon, and you know the saying is you never draw on someone on a draw, right? You don't draw a weapon on a weapon. It doesn't happen. So your fighting chances without the weapon. So taking that in mind, what I want to do is my position. My position is always going to be the location of where I stand in combination of my distance. I want to be towards the dominant side, potentially his dominant side, so I can smother it and I can protect myself against punches and weapons. So that again is a strategy. So what I'm trying to do is explain it as I never have a plan. If he, for example, if he grabs me, I do this technique. Okay? If he grabs me, bang, 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 I do whatever I have to do, but I don't have a preset technique. I don't go, this is my plan, because the chances are he punches me in the face, I get disorientated, he grabs my throat, and then he pulls his weapon. Whatever happens, it becomes this loop of getting confused and more disorientated, and that's why you never have a plan to fight. Plans fail. Strategies survive. You need to survive, and that's what we're trying to build on this channel, a community of survivors. And to do that, you have to have a flexible way of thinking. You have to be resilient, and resilience comes from just putting yourself in the situation, training it, being open-minded to all the possibilities. We spoke about how you should train a what-if scenario all the time to create resilience, okay, to create flexibility of thinking, but come up with strategies, not plans. And if you look through our catalogue of videos, you'll see, especially over the last couple of years, I've been talking much more about basic strategies of how to defend yourself, and much less on particular techniques, because techniques are great when you're discussing martial arts, but at the end of the day, when you're discussing self-defense, it has to be a strategy of self-defense rather than a plan.
Because they're live hands.
Everything's live, everything's real. And if I say you're going to do A and I'm going to do B, that's never going to work in a real life, because I guarantee that you're going to train against a bottle attack and it comes this way and it comes this way and it comes this way, and I guarantee that he changes the angle slightly, and because you've drilled doing it one way, you get hit straight away. So don't plan, strategize. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and on that, have fun.